Hello, this is Super Game Boy 2 running Tetris, and I'm running both of them together in the Mesen emulator. My Super Game Boy 2 cartridge that I bought off of eBay came today. I dumped it with my Sanni Cart Reader V5, and here it is running in the emulator. Now there's three important differences between the Super Game Boy 2 and the Super Game Boy 1, which is what we got in the United States. The Super Game Boy 1 is just known as Super Game Boy. The Super Game Boy 2 only came out in Japan, but it corrected a few things that were maybe seen as not quite perfect in the first Super Game Boy. One of those was that, wait, I'm blanking, what was the other one? Oh, well, it added a link port. So there's a link port on the side of the cartridge, and I guess you can plug in your Game Boy link cable and do whatever things you normally do with a Game Boy link port that way. Link to another Game Boy for multiplayer or something. I guess in theory you could probably link two Super Game Boy 2's together and just go nuts. Anyway, another difference was that the Super Game Boy, or Super Game Boy 1, as I'm sort of calling it for the sake of convenience here to distinguish it, it actually ran, even though it basically had the Game Boy hardware inside the cartridge, it did not have its own timer, or however that works. I think what it was doing, this is what I vaguely understand off Wikipedia, it was for getting its timing information, it was like dividing the Super Nintendo's clock speed by 5, which gave an approximation of the Game Boy's clock speed, very close approximation, but it was not quite perfect. So in fact, it was running Game Boy games. If you're running a Game Boy game in the Super Game Boy 1, they were running 2.4% faster than a regular Game Boy would run them. And that also meant that the game's sounds were pitched upward 2.4%, so everything was slightly higher pitched. Now, that's a fairly tiny amount. You wouldn't really notice it, but the main Game Boy game I really want to play is Tetris here, and I was thinking, I don't know if I really want Tetris to be 2.4% harder, because everything's going to be moving faster, and also I really like that, Game Boy or Tetris Game Boy music, and I didn't want that to be slightly off pitch. So I thought, well, maybe I should get this Super Game Boy 2. So anyway, that's what I've got now. There is another difference though, which is one of the special modes you can activate. So when you're running the Super Game Boy, if you hit the Super Nintendo's two shoulder buttons, the left and right shoulder buttons together, it pops up the Super Game Boy menu. And the menu is exactly the same. You notice Nintendo are very smart about these menus. They don't have actual words in them, so they're the same in English and Japanese. So, even though this is a Japanese cart, it's the same icons and all that stuff. So you've got the icon for palette colors. You can pick different palettes. You can pick different borders. And then other stuff. The one that we're concerned about here is borders, because these are different on the Super Game Boy 2, different than the Super Game Boy 1. So the default border is this Game Boy type thing, and you notice that's a little different. It says Super Game Boy 2 in the lower border. The rest of it's more or less the same. I actually this is the one border I like better from the Super Game Boy 1. I don't really like that tiny little Super Game Boy 2 logo as much as the original Super Game Boy logo. Now, these borders also have a special code or a timer that activates something. This default one does not have a screensaver type function like some of the other ones, but it does have different colors. So if you enter this button code, you can see different colors. And the code is, you hit the left shoulder button 4 times on the Super Nintendo controller, and the right shoulder button once. So I'm going to hit left 4 times and right once. And once you enter the code correctly, the game will, or the Super Game Boy confirms it by beeping. So here we go. I did it wrong. There we go. Oh, it doesn't beep on this one. Okay, it just changes color. So you've got, I think, 7 colors is what GameFAQs or something said. I kind of like that one. That one's pretty smooth. And then back to the default. So that's that. That's the default border and its special function. Now, after that, you've got this black border. And there's also this thing, and I don't know what that does. I'm an idiot. So this black border has a very special function. So if we toggle the menu back off, that's I neglected to mention that. You have to toggle the menu back off by hitting L and R together to enter these codes. So with the black border activated, all you're seeing is the Game Boy game in this massive black border. But if you enter the code here, you will hear the chime. So there. So I entered the code and it confirmed it. Nothing is visible that has changed immediately, but if you go back to the borders, you'll notice that now they are different. These are in fact the Super Game Boy 1 borders, because if you looked earlier, the little icons for the borders were different. The Super Game Boy 2 has a different selection of borders in these later registers here. But now that I entered the code, the left 4 times, right once code with the black border, it then toggles back to the Super Game Boy 1 borders. So the Super Game Boy 2 has a new set of borders, but it also has the Super Game Boy 1's borders in it as well that you activate with that black screen code. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the Super Game Boy 1 borders because there are already plenty of videos on YouTube covering those. I just want to select one of them because it'll help illustrate something I want to point out about the Super Game Boy and Super Game Boy 2's video. So I'm going to enter the code here to activate the screensaver mode. So that's left 4 times, right once. Mario comes out. A giant Mario spins out of the lower window and he taps his foot. Various other characters will appear while this goes on. Now, I wanted giant Mario here to appear because you notice, so he looks about right? You would say his aspect ratio is right. He's not too wide or too skinny. But if you look at those Tetris blocks in the Tetris demo mode that's running behind Mario, who's now fallen asleep because he got bored. I thought he was going to pick his nose. The blocks, the Tetris blocks, you'll notice once we get back to, okay, see those Tetris blocks? They aren't perfectly square, right? They look a little wide. They're a little wider than they are tall. The little cubes that make up they're rectangles in this case. There's Princess Peach. They're a little wider than they are tall, and that's because, I think, because the Super Game Boy was, of course, designed to output video to a CRT television, and those run with NTSC or PAL video modes. And the NTSC, for instance, the pixels that make up an NTSC picture are not perfectly square. They are slightly wider than they are tall, and I think with PAL it's even wider. Actually, let's switch you. So I'm running my emulator in a simulated NTSC screen here. Let me switch it to PAL. Yeah, so even wider in PAL. So the Tetris blocks just look really weird in PAL. Anyway, here we are back to NTSC. Now, the Game Boy, on the other hand, had its own LCD screen that was not a CRT display. The dots on the Game Boy screen were, I think they were perfectly square, or in any case, they were much closer to square than an NTSC video's pixels are. So if I set the emulator, if I set Mesen to an unstretched aspect ratio, where the pixels are actually square, you notice the Game Boy blocks are now nice and square looking, like you would expect to see them on a Game Boy screen. But Mario is now a little on the skinny side. If we can get him to turn back around, see, he's skinnier now. He's lost some weight. So anyway, that's I just wanted to point that out. anyway, here we are back to NTSC. Okay, I'm going to go back to the Super Game Boy 2 borders and run through those. So I have to switch back to the black border, turn that off, enter the code, and now we should be back on the Super Game Boy 2 borders. There we are. Okay, so these borders are unique to the Super Game Boy 2. They are not in the Super Game Boy 1. So you've got this circuit board, which is actually, it kind of goes well with the remnants of the screen around the Game Boy. I'm going to enter the code. So now it's going to do its animation. And the animation on this one is subtle. You see it's just little lights are sort of lighting up and twinkling at us. It's a pretty cool circuit board graphic, though. I like it. It makes you feel like you've like hacked open, or you're running a hacked screen on some kind of weird pirate hardware or something. Now, I haven't sat through all of these animations completely, so I don't know how long this might go before it loops or whatever. Those lights are kind of going crazy. I mean, they started out going one by one, but now they're just a bunch of them going at once. Well, it looks like that's about all it's going to do. I'm gonna go on to the next one. Weird stripy palm trees. Let's see what happens when we enter the code. Oh, monkeys. Monkeys with bare buns. This is Nintendo mooning us. Where did he get that club from? What the? Oh, this could get dark. Don't do it. Okay. Wait, what's he gonna do with that hammer? This is a little distracting. So, I've seen people say that these come on as a screensaver if you don't enter any input on the Game Boy screen for a while. But I waited like 3 minutes and nothing had happened, and I got bored. So I don't know how long it's longer. You have to wait longer than 3 minutes anyway. Maybe it's 5 minutes. I have no idea. Why does this one guy have the club though? That's just freaking me out. You can also see shadows way below those monkeys along the top. Are they going to fall? Is he going to hammer their fingers and they're going to fall? It's actually pretty cool how this is running over Tetris, though. Now, I'm not sure if I can actually play Tetris while this is going. I think if I enter input now, it'll clear the monkeys away. Which is not what I want to do, because then Tetris will also start making noise, and I don't want it to do that. Well, let's see what happens. I'll risk it. Yeah, they left. It didn't wake Tetris up, though, so that's fine. So I can reactivate it, I think. Yeah. They really get up those tree trunks. Yeah, then that guy pulls out the club. I mean, that's just... like, why? And what are the others doing? They don't seem interested in pulling themselves up like he did. They're just hanging around. You got a green one, you got a yellow one, you got a reddish one, you got this magenta one at the top, got a white one, you got a blue one, and you've got the black one with the club. That's... I don't know. Are they just... I don't know what they're trying to tell us with this one. Let's, fortunately, no monkey smashing drama appears to be happening here. So let's just go on to the next one. How about that? I don't know, they just wanted this note of danger in there, like this guy just looming with his club. His hammer, his mallet. I guess mallet is probably more accurate. Now you got the one guy who's just bored and dangling from one arm. It could be a girl, I suppose. What's this monkey gonna do? Are they gonna just dangle there for a while? Don't leave me dangling, monkey. Do something. Now the other one's dangling. Oh. 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 Oh, wow. Oh, no. It got a little owie on its bum. Well, so the gray monkey struck the other monkey. Well, okay, that's getting weird. Let's go on. This is kind of interesting. Okay, here goes the animation. Whoa. Whoa. So these animations are really elaborate. They were for some of the ones in the first Game Boys, or Super Game Boys. Well, oh my gosh. It's a whole magical light parade. A silent one. That's actually pretty sweet. Are they going to come down the right-hand side? Something's got to happen on the right-hand side. You can't leave us unbalanced like this. Okay, different color. Are they going to have a different light display? No, different colors on it though. That's a pretty far out one. So I guess you can't actually play while this stuff is going on, which is kind of too bad. I mean, it would, you know, can't I have monkeys smashing their fingers while I'm playing Tetris? Why not? Oh, now we got green, so it's still going through colors. Can't we have a gigantic Mario just sitting there and picking at his mustache in front of part of the game? Oh boy, how many colors could there be? I ain't got all day here, little people. Well, they don't care. They got their own marching business. Well, haven't we gone through the principal colors now? So we're on to secondary colors. Primary colors, I guess. Primary, secondary. Are they going to do tertiary colors? This is actually a bit of a lesson on color theory, or the color wheel, or whatever. I don't know. I want a light up Game Boy like that. That'd be sweet. I mean, where you just got little lights all over the whole thing. I suppose somebody's probably made something like that. Yeah, now we're into purple. Okay. Okay, well, I think that's probably good. Oh, now you changed it up. Oh, gosh, dang it. Now they had to go and bring out the SNES controller. That's pretty cool, pulsing lights on them, though. So what, are we gonna have like 5 of those march past? Didn't we do red before? I think red was the first color, yeah. So it just does one SNES controller version, maybe? Well, I'm going to call that. I mean, they're on the other side now. Okay, let's see what happens. One more. That Tetris block arrangement there freaks me out. At first I was thinking, oh my gosh, is my dumped ROM malfunctioning or something? Why is it, has that weird missing block patterns there? But I guess that's just what it does. Wait, now we're into like purple again, or is that a darker purple with black, or... I don't know, anyway, okay. That's the wrong thing. It's been watching that so long I've forgotten what my controls are here. Okay. Oh, this one, I did look at this animation before. This one's pretty cool. So you got these gears, you got this funky mechanical border around the Game Boy screen, which is actually kind of awesome. But check this out when we enter the code. Yeah. That's interesting, because look how smooth the animation is on the upper left gear. The gear in the upper left, super smooth rotation, whereas the bigger gear on the right, for instance, the far right, upper right side, you know, it can't animate quite as smoothly. Well, this one seems fairly straightforward, at least. I don't think... It doesn't seem like it's going to change. But that is pretty cool. See, and again, like, I wish I could play Tetris with the gears whirling. That would be sweet, right? But if I make it, like, D-pad input, it stops. Okay. I don't think there's a code that would allow it to keep going. So you've got this sort of jungle scene here, or a stream, or a swamp, primordial swamp. Maybe we'll have a dinosaur pop out. Got this wooden frame around the... Oh, something wants to pop out. Hey. Oh, wow. Yep, dinosaurs. I called it. Like a diplodocus or something way back there. You got a pterodactyl up there, maybe. Being very cagey about this. It's not showing us what they actually are. And you've got this little mammalian creature in the lower right, so... Playing it very coy about what period of Earth history this could be. Because that could just be a giraffe. I guess that's probably, you would have to say, probably just a giraffe. Those things flying are probably just birds. Well, they just disappeared, too, right in the middle of flying across the center top of the screen. That thing on the right looks like a meerkat or something, and we got just your average little tiny alligator or something. But I'm going to choose to say that that thing in the background is not a giraffe. That's a diplodocus. Those are pterodactyls. That thing on the lower right is an early mammal who's just trying to hide from all these terrifying reptiles. We're back in... one of those late eras of the dinosaurs, right before the meteor struck. What was that, like 68 million years ago, or am I way off? 7 million years ago? I don't know. Anyway, that's probably not what it's supposed to be. Okay. Well, I don't know how, like, I don't feel that one works very well with Tetris, for instance. But there is one in here that I did see that works really well with Tetris, as far as I am concerned. Not this one necessarily. It's got some nice dolphins and clams. Let's enter the code. Oh, hi. Oh, it's very, very peppy dolphins and peppy clams. Okay, they waggle their tails at you. This is weird. Like, I mean, these things are not very functional as screensaver. Well, especially because the game screen doesn't go anywhere, so you'd still be burning in the center of your screen to some degree. But like the one before this, most of the screen didn't ever change, so you can't really call that a proper screensaver. Well, this is just happy dolphins. So now they're hiding a little bit. Or did I accidentally trigger? I don't even have my hands on the controls right now. I couldn't accidentally hit something. Are they just playing it coy for a while? Did my computer hiccup and somehow cause an input to be entered? Do I have to re-enter the code? Maybe this one just doesn't loop like the other ones do. I'm going to try re-entering the code. No? No, it doesn't want to... It's not doing anything. Well, that's weird. Well... That's dolphins. Maybe I screwed that one up, I don't know. So this one I think works actually really well with the default Super Game Boy color palette in Tetris. I mean, look at that. I guess, you know, probably worked pretty well with a lot of games because it's very similar to the default Super Game Boy color palette. So, but somehow it makes Tetris look like an Olympic sport, which is sweet. Okay, I'm entering the code. We got fireworks. We got the crowd doing the wave. Except they're doing the wave across a single, like this is a very organized crowd. You would have had to divide them up into subsections. It's like, okay, you people do the wave in these rows, do the wave that way, then the rows below them will do the wave the other way. They're also spelling TFI, FIGA. Okay. Oh, fight. I can read. Pretty relatively subtle animation for the most part, aside from those fireworks and the flames. So you just got this stadium crowd doing the most complicated wave in the world, and then telling us to fight. But I do like this background. It's pretty, makes Tetris look awesome. So, you know, because I have this stuff in an emulator can do stuff like remove the borders anyway and let you see the Game Boy screen full screen, so you still get, you know, like the custom palette benefits of the Super Game Boy. Although, of course, you can just, so the Mesen emulator lets you modify the Game Boy colors anyway if you want to by punching in your own RGB values without you. So you wouldn't need a Super Game Boy ROM to do all that stuff to change the Game Boy colors, but it's kind of easier to do with the Super Game Boy, I suppose, because the interface for it in Mesen is actually not super user friendly. But so I mean, given though that you can just manipulate the Game Boy colors directly without the Super Game Boy in an emulator, you would say, well, why you even use a Super Game Boy? I don't know. I guess because I like the palettes it comes with, and I didn't want to bother copying them down and entering them manually. Well, originally I thought I was going to get one of those analog Super NT things. But what was I gonna do? I was going somewhere with that because, oh yeah, so Mesen has a option that I'm activating here where you can hide the Super Game Boy borders, and then if I retoggle there. So now I'm running, this is a function specifically of Mesen. This is not the Super Game Boy. This is the emulator doing this kind of hack. So it just knows how to remove the border section, then you can blow the rest of the screen, the Game Boy screen part, up to full screen if you want. So then you've got full screen Game Boy emulation, but with the color palette from the Super Game Boy. Super Game Boy 2. Well, the color palettes, I believe, are all the same between the Super Game Boy and the Super Game Boy 2. And I suppose, well, that would be weird. I want to try that now. So I'm going to put the border back on so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to bring the Super Game Boy up. Go back to the monkeys. Okay, now I'm going to switch the border off. Or hide it in the emulator. Now I'm going to trigger the monkeys. And there you can see their paws as they climb up. And then we just get to see the danglers. So anyway, that's a silly little stunt you can do with an emulator specifically. I'm going to bring that back. Okay, so that is the Super Game Boy 2 borders. So it's got its own set of borders. You can enter a code on the black border, which is the same as the Super Game Boy 1. You can enter the left, right code there to toggle over to the Super Game Boy 1 borders if you still want those. And then you can enter it again to toggle back. And then you can activate the screensaver function on the borders manually by entering that same code, left 4 times, right once on the shoulder buttons. And then you get weird stuff like these monkeys who eventually start smacking each other with this mallet. It's just, the monkey one's kind of creepy. So that's it. Thanks for watching. And, oh no, oh man, that monkey looked like it was in such pain. He was desperately trying to hang on. I guess it's not too desperate. I mean, it slowed itself down. It knows it's going to be mostly okay. Looks around. Just going to climb back up? I forget. Yep. Okay. Is it just going to go back out there and get smacked again? The drama. Why are you doing this to yourself? She's a glutton for punishment. Now you got the blue monkey working its way up. I guess it's been doing that for a while, right? Yeah, it just slides back down. Is the gray monkey gonna smack him again? I mean, it's got to, right? It's got to loop at some point. Oh, the crushing inevitability of this upcoming monkey violence. Oh, no. Oh, God. Sliding down the Tetris logo. There's something you don't see every day. Okay, well, that's about all I had to show you. Thanks for checking it out, and maybe I'll see you later. And watch out for monkeys with mallets.